in the private sector or a really good example in the public sector, we tend to shine a light on it and highlight the example where women are succeeding, and you use that success as a tool to make societal change. One most recent example, particularly highlighted through COVID, is that the public and the private sectors can't do this alone. While the public sector can act as an exemplar with our policies and procedures for things like flexible work, working from home, part-time work, we're only one part of the picture. So a lot of the work is speaking to our stakeholder groups, and a bit of that sort of positive peer pressure where things are working really well for women. A particular example in post-COVID where we worked with the private sector here in New Zealand was the development of information around apprenticeships and trades. So in New Zealand, that's people who are undertaking training in things like building or plumbing or electricians and things like that. We've had a very small number of women in that sector, so we worked with some of the large providers in the private sector to promote information to go out to encourage women into employment, which has worked quite well. But the driving the empowerment within our sector and within the private sector is very much something that we do together. So I'm holding my hands like this, so it's a joint thing. We in the public sector do strive to be very good examples, but we also there are big business in New Zealand that does a wonderful job of promoting women's empowerment, ensuring women in leadership, and having equal pay. So we also need to learn from our friends in the private sector as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. We see the holding hands in New Zealand. So let's fly to China. Professor Lee, as a profound researcher in women empowerment, can you share with us the public-private partnerships that you have experienced in China? And please share some cases that we can learn from. Hi, Professor Lee, we cannot hear you, so maybe you can turn on your...
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, Mr. Han. And it's my honor to introduce some of my research and my observation and for the women's empowerment from perspective of public and private collaboration. Actually, when you look at back and the women's empowerment and the women's movement in China has a very long tradition of public and private collaboration. And specifically, I want to highlight the organization is a women's federation. I think it's a very unique example to explain how China to conduct the public and private collaboration. And I'm not sure if how many of the audience know about the Women's Federation. Women's Federation in China, on China Women's Federation in China, it actually is the biggest women's organization in China. And I want to highlight this organization because actually its network, it covers from central government level to the village level. It covers five levels. And so you can get all the information from the very grassroots level and then give this information to the central government level. And another point I want to see is actually because the China Women's Federation have a very close connection with government and also with the civil communities. So you from their network, from their publications and from their policies, you can see all the opinions and the ideas that you can read from their publications and from the research report. And the third I want to see is actually this kind of collaboration in China can be seen from the two important conferences. Every year in March in Beijing, there will be a National People's Congress conference and also the People's Political Consultative Conference. And every year, because of representative of this two conferences, and some of them are women, so every year they need to fulfill their responsibility to give bills and give proposals. And if you read their proposals, they need to get proposals to highlight the women's needs and the girls' needs. So some of my colleagues will write and do the research and write the proposal together with this representative to give their proposals to this important conference. And this is one point I want to highlight. Another point I want to highlight is actually in China today, if you look at the public and private collaboration, and I want to see that according to law, the law of the women's interests and the rights, I think the law cannot see in many other countries. In China, we have the women's law, specifically to emphasize women's rights and the interests should be protected and should be confirmed. And according to the article of that law, that the women has the rights to give their opinions to the government, and so from the Women's Federation, and also they can give these opinions and consultation to the government. And I want to give examples that you can see more clearly how women's empowerment, especially the economic empowerment. Last month, I went to the town in Jiande County in the Zhejiang province. And together with my students, my graduate students, we did the field trips. So we visited a female entrepreneur, and her story is really, I think, a very good illustration of how the public and private collaborations. I'm shocked because I read her story in the magazine, in the airplane. The airplane magazines as examples of how including her products is we could say is Danjub. Danjub is a very special herb that you can get the ingredients for the medicine that can very important for the cardiac. And I'm very shocked by her story because I understand that he can do such a big business. He must graduate from college. Actually, she is not. She is just a graduate. She has never been to the college or university, but she conducted this business very successfully. That is collaboration from the public and private collaboration. And before she, plant this herb and organize her villagers to plant these kind of herbs, that she raised chickens. And because China concerned more about environment protection, and the government considered to change the local industry into a environment friendly economic industry. So the government and together cooperated with the university and the research institute to find that this place is a very right place to plant the Danjub. So they encourage these women to be the leader to organize the local village to plant. And I want to see this. They experience such a feeling and before they succeed. And but during the whole process, the government and support the Zhejiang University and the Zhejiang Institute of Agriculture and Science to cooperate with these women and provide technology and the government provided the funds. And during the whole process, the government believed that if they choose the right person and they together with the department, I mean, like a university, to find the right industry can be grow in this area. If they find right person, they support the whole process, and then they can succeed. And I think maybe some days some of you, if can check, can visit China. I think it's a very, very good example to see how they cooperate during this process. Yes.
Thank you, Professor Lee. Rebecca, we understand it's not an easy job to push for women empowerment. So what are the difficulties do you see for public and private collaboration to help women? And how have you addressed any of these difficulties, and in what jobs we need more effort?
Thank you. One of the key difficulties across everybody in both sectors is really driving this change in and of itself, because people are so resistant to change, or resistant to what they don't know, what they haven't experienced before. So part of the difficulty of this change is convincing people that, you know, it's the right thing to do, and it's good for your business, and it's good to have diverse leadership. So we do this again, similar to the earlier point around influencing change. So holding up really good examples. For us in the public sector, we do a lot of research. We look at issues like women on boards, and we help women see these opportunities and push women on boards for the public sector. For example, we've got around 50% of women on the public sector boards. So we use that as an example to prove that this change is a really good thing. In terms of requiring more effort, I think we're all sitting here today in this conference because we still need to push, we still need to promote women, we need to create opportunities for women. So I think there's still much to be done. And empowering women economically in the public and the private sector. I mean, we've all many of our economies have spent hundreds of years not having women empowered. So it's not an easy fix. So one of the difficulties is in places like the Ministry for Women, we can see this, and we want change, and we want change in evolution, and we want it faster. But part of addressing it is being very methodical and very clear about what we're trying to achieve and why, and again nudging those changes through. We in New Zealand are hoping that public service again is an exemplar with women on boards, and we're hoping that will nudge the private sector in New Zealand to empower women into leadership positions. So I completely support my earlier panelist's comment about perception matters, and it matters a lot. You can't be what you can't see. So we need women in these positions. We need women leading business, and we need to shine a light on it. And for the public sector, that's where we can come in. For example, the ministry works with lots of sectors who are doing this work themselves. So one example in New Zealand is the Architects and Engineers Association, where recently the minister attended a meeting where they're actually doing this themselves. So they can see the work that's going on within New Zealand, and they've seen a gap in their industry in STEM, and so they're working themselves to promote it. So we want to highlight that and promote it and say, hey, look, these got the sectors, and my earlier example about the building sector, the sector is doing a great thing. How about you guys think about it? So that's, I don't want to say we've addressed all the difficulties, because as I say, I think these things are going to take a long time, but we can see what we need to do in the pathway to get there, which I think is important.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Professor Lee, following Rebecca's change topic, as a legal professor, you have been promoting changes in legislative works about women's rights. So what is the critical focus of legislative works in China currently, and in the future, what agenda would you like to promote to change? Thank you.
So actually, I think the legislation and the policy making concerning women's issues and the gender equality, and I think it's a part of the improvement of China legal system and the rule of law in China. So you cannot separate these two parts to talk about. So also when we talk about this law, I think it's a part of our next 5-year plan for national economic and social development, and the long-range objectives through the year 2035. The Chinese government has published that document. If you read these documents, closely, you can see a lot of problems or challenges that has been pointed out in these documents. And it's also in line with our research and our observation. I can give examples. For example, like in the health sectors, it's concerning the systematic mechanism about the cervical and the breast cancer. Actually, this is a program that lasted for many years. And then this time, this document points out that it will be a comprehensive system to prevent and to treat. And another point I want to see is this document highlights the rights of women to receive education. And if you look at China, you can see that actually we know in the primary school that almost 100% girls can receive the primary school education. But this time they talk about the continuously raise the year of the receive education and the quality of education. And also another part, I think this will be closely connected to the law and the legislation, is about the gender discrimination in the employment, and to ensure women to benefit the equal economic rights. And the fourth point is about the rural women's land rights. This is a very big challenge in China today, because the contradiction between the formal law and the customary law, and so there's a very big contradiction. So we need to strengthen the law, formal law, and also the change the custom to ensure women to enjoy their rural women enjoying their land rights. And another part I think is will closely connected to our law is about the gender impact assessment system. Now China is set up this system, and the reason is that we need to emphasize to improve the data collection, so as to make laws on the evidence-based and the data-based, and to meet the real needs of women. And this year we have several new laws to be adopted, like a family education law. Actually it means a parenting support law, but in China we call it a family education law. It's to support parents to be better parents, to be a real parent, and to how the government and society to support the policy, support them to be. And also we have the new law like a preschool education law, And this also closely connected to women. And also another another news that I want to share is this year in China, because last year we adopted the civil code, and so civil law code. So this year we will correspondingly we will amend the women's law. I mean the law on women's rights and protection, or the laws around protection of women's rights and interests. I think there will be a big change on this part.
Thank you, Professor Lee. We're running out of time. Here is the last question for both. So, Rebecca, what's the post-pandemic agenda for the ministry?
Thank you. And since we are running out of time, I'll make this very, very fast. For the ministry and the Minister for Women, we know, as in New Zealand as in other economies around the world, women get hit harder by economic downturns. We've seen this happen before. So in the case of COVID, although some of the industries that have been hit have been different to other crises, women have still been have had negative impacts. So the post-pandemic agenda is to ensure that women and girls and other groups are fully included in the economic recovery. A key part of this is to, rather than return to the status quo of how things were before, is to actually build back better. So we've been focused on an employment action plan is the area of policy that we've been working on, to take an overarching look at structural issues facing women in the labour market and looking at making some longer-term systemic changes to improve workforce participation, resilience and economic well-being for women specifically. And it will be a combination of different timeframes, but we're particularly looking at the structural, the way women interact with the labour market in particular, and how we can best promote economic well-being for women. As part of this, of course, there are several facets. So employment is just one part. Part will be how we think about unpaid work that women do a majority of, occupational segregation, and promoting both women into occupations predominantly performed by men, but also men into occupations predominantly performed by women, and progressing some of the pay equity processes, so that work equal pay for work of equal value, which was in train prior to the pandemic, but COVID-19 exacerbated and underlined the need for that work to progress quite quickly. So that's just a very quick snapshot of some of the things we're doing in the economic space.
Thank you, Rebecca. The last question for Professor Lee. According to your research in this pandemic, how can the government and private organizations improve women's connection and career development?
And I think besides the general policy for the individuals, for the enterprise, and for the economic sector heavily influenced by the pandemic, I think all of them there have women working there and affected there. Besides the general policy, I mean, like preferential taxation, fiscal policy, subsidies to the people, no matter men or women. I think specifically for women, on China Women's Federation, together with the government agencies, they have special policies for women's employment, for women's burden of carry, and for women's, training of, and also for the career development. And I want to emphasize this because usually still you see today, just like most countries, that women are most likely to be employment in the informal sector. So the informal sector are heavily influenced by the COVID-19. So for this part, according to my according to my knowledge of the information, that they arrange many trainings for women, and also together cooperate with the employer to provide opportunities to work online or work in distance. So, but I want to see is actually COVID-19 amplifies the challenge and the difficulties women face in daily life. It's not a new problem. I think it's a problem lasts for many years. So, and the COVID-19 reminds us we need to accelerate the efforts and to narrow the gap, the gender gap. And because women in the disadvantaged group are more fragile, and if we will not, accelerate this pace on these efforts, the gap will become bigger.
Thank you, Rebecca, Silvana, and Professor Lee. Next one, let's start with our first Hear Her Story. Let me invite Ms. Cara Yuan from Vietnam, founder and general director of APEC, a digitally native vertical fashion business. So, Cara, you are a very successful woman to build your own company, APEC, from the ground up, promoting sustainability and empowering women through mindfulness. Could you please elaborate more in detail, and particularly, how do you empower women?
When it comes to empowering women, I believe that female empowerment really starts within the woman ourselves, in our minds, individually and collectively. Unconscious gender biases don't just exist in the mind of the men, but also ourselves as women. And it's a reality we have to be very deeply aware of so that we can shift our own beliefs and then change our course of actions. The inequality we're facing today is a social construct. And over time, women have naturally internalized limiting beliefs on ourselves, from the kind of role and kind of what we can have in the society to how we should perceive our own body and beauty. And, when it comes to women's self-perception issues, fashion plays such a huge role in the history. On the surface, it may seem that it's just something we put on, but deeply, it has a lot to do with women's systemic limiting beliefs. And especially in today's disruptive world, with the rise of social media, it may further affect mental health of the women, especially in young women as well. What I see is that a lot of women from all walks of life struggle with so much clothing and face difficulty to choose outfit every morning. And the figures is actually scary. On average, we only use 20% of our wardrobe. And a survey by Mark and Spencer in 2016 showed that women on average spend 17 minutes a day to choose what to wear. And, in the context of today's busy schedule, that is a lot of time for women to be distracted from. And, the research also shows that clothing doesn't just directly affect our mental well-being, it also affects our decision-making ability and performance at work and in life. Currently, the fashion industry, with its perpetual cycles that constantly promotes newness, thrives on women's feelings of inadequacy. And its rigid sizing system and the way it promotes beauty also further disempower women's individuality and body inclusivity. So if we heard that, gender equity starts in the home, then women empowerment starts in our closet. I think it could be very revolutionary to see if women can take back their power from media and embrace, the uniqueness and only buy what truly fits her, and not just her body, but also her lifestyle and personal values. And that's exactly what, my business, APEC, is trying to do. We really put the power back into the woman's hand. So our product very much mimics, the product cycle of technology product. We only do one product at a time. And our products are actually not based on trend report or forecast, but it's based on real feedback and real survey from women. And we are amazed at how innovative our female customers are. You know, we have women who have to attend lots of events and suggest how can one dress could offer multiple looks so that she can save time and be more focused by not having to bring outfits with her and by not having to, go back home sometimes even to change. And we also have women in management role working under high pressure and who really value health and exercises. One, her work chooses to be made in a way that she can work out any time that she wants. So it's actually, the female customers' ideas that shape our business direction today to really pioneer in innovative and transformable site solutions. And we also address, the lack of body inclusivity in fashion and liberate women from unhealthy body images by normalizing customization and made to order. And the feedback are great because our women are not just empowered by the fact that their clothes are now more quality and individually made for her. She also very empowered because when she support our model, she also helped tackle the environment issues with the massive amount of burned unsold inventories in fashion. And, we build that community and do everything, all the communication and transaction digitally, from via survey, virtual consultations. Our model, which is digitally native vertical model, is still a very new business model that has only been around for over 10 years. But when we introduce this model, not only we have the female customers, we also introduce an innovation culture to upskill our team, which is 100% female at the moment. So from designers to our garment workers, from day one, they already develop a very data-driven mindset. And it's just very empowering to see, the entire team communicate, delegate, and also streamline our daily operations through using technologies. And, as I mentioned before, I really believe in the power of women collective across all levels and across industries. So at APEC, we continuously collaborate with other social organizations to join force with us. And currently, we are in talk with Empower Women Asia, an organization that's supporting ethnic minority women in traditional weaving villages of Vietnam. So really, it's, empowering women is an ongoing journey that I believe that we only just started.
Great, thank you. You just mentioned that your product is based on the customers' feedback, especially from the women. So we understand you are also a prolific leaders on fashion and women's issues, serving in Fashion Revolutions and other organizations in leadership capacities. I do believe you collect those feedbacks from there. So what do you think are the most urgent issues of today, and what are you personally focused on?
Apart from my business, I'm also served as the coordinator of the Ho Chi Minh coordinator for Fashion Revolution, which is, the biggest activism organization in the world in the fashion industry. And, out there are probably not many industries that have a global activism organization to address its issues. So there are a lot of problems we need to tackle within the fashion industry. The reality is, despite the fact that women are the industry main labor force, prime consumers, and target market, according to a report by McKinsey in 2018, while about 80% of the garment workers are women, only 14% of major brands have female executives in charge. And even at designing level, more than half of well-known women's wear brands are actually designed by men. So there's no wonder that why women keep buying more and being stuck in this consumerism and still don't get what they truly need. And this actually also have a knock-on effect that causes fashion a huge overproduction and overconsumption issue. It is quite shocking and alarming to know that 2/3 of all clothing made goes to landfill within just 12 months. And this problem is also very interconnected and directly linked to gender equality problem. because the exploitation of female workers are due to the pressure to keep things cheap. And when things are cheap, it becomes disposable. So, if we, female consumers are not being mindful with our own purchase decision, we may accidentally, unconsciously further add to the gender inequality, to female workers down the supply chain. And that is why, my mantra has always been to be about less but better. And better here is not just about better for myself, but also for, the life of the people who make the product and so on, and also for the environment as well. And I'm really mindful in my journey that I'm trying to lead by example, both at work and in life.
Great, thank you. The last question, could you please share any advice how to become more resilient in this digital age with our women's online?
Right. It takes quite a few factors to cultivate resilience, right? And it's also a journey. I think when it comes to digitalization, just like anything else in life, it comes with pros and cons. And one of the biggest benefits with digitalization I found is the access to knowledge and learning for continuous personal development. And, it really is the case that today, with technology, we can learn almost anything when we set our mind. So that is, one way for women to always equip herself with more knowledge and personal skill. But also on the other side, when it comes to technology, is that it also comes with more distraction, overwhelming information, too much opinions, shopping, social media, and they are all waiting for us to consume. So, really being mindful to be the user of technology and not being used by it is one of the key skills that I'm trying to develop to, the ability to be focused and immune to technology distractions is probably one of the macro skills in today's digital area. Last but not least, in today's very uncertain world with potential, unexpected traumas, I found that, practicing gratitude is very helpful to enable us to really stay positive and be present with what we have and then overcome the challenge.
Great, thank you, Kara from Vietnam. Now we are going to the second panel, Technology Empowers Women in the Crisis. We'll have women leaders from different sectors, but focusing on tech empowerment, including Annie Chan, Vice President, Head of Corporate Communications, Greater China at Visa. Diane Wang, Co-Convener, Economic Empowerment Task Force Inclusion Working Group of APEC, and Founder, Chairperson, and CEO of DHgate.com. Zhixin Chen, Senior Vice President and Partner at Plug and Play China. Let's start with our first question with Annie. Annie, as a leading global payments technology company, what is the most critical agenda for gender equality and diversity in this pandemic for your company?
Thank you, Sam. Great honor for me to be here today, and it's wonderful to hear lots of inspiring thoughts on inclusion, diversity, and women empowerment, etc. So Visa is a global payment technology company for more than 60 years. And we have operated in China for over 30 years. We partner with over 15,000 issuers with over 3.5 billion cards issued and accepted in 70 million merchants locations around the world. As a leading payment network, our vision is to be the best way to pay and be paid for everyone everywhere. Visa joins our clients, partners, fintech, startup, and other stakeholders to connect the world, helping to empower people and businesses and communities to thrive and to be the trust engine of commerce and enable money movement. As you can hear from our visions, everyone everywhere. So inclusion and diversity is always on top of our mind. Beyond our efforts to make economies more inclusive, a cause that has inspired our team is the worldwide effort advocating for inclusion and diversity. which is a business imperative with plans, commitment, and specific goals that we are tracking. So during pandemic, lots of business are forced to close down, for example, like restaurant, retailers, servicing industry. So women are the key contributor to the labor force in this sector, and they are losing their jobs. Also, children are not going to school, and women are expected to stay home to look after them. So statistics show that women are exiting from the labor force because of pandemic, which will have a long-term impact to the economy. It's critically important for companies like Visa and the society to support women. Visa is committed to using our full power of the global network, our brand, and financial services to empower our female colleagues. Diversity and inclusion is a key pillar of our company, and that encompasses culture, ethics, age, and as well as gender diversity. So in addition to good finance and strategy, inclusion and diversity give us the competitive edge to better serve our clients and collaborate with partners. And the key to create the diverse and inclusion work culture that different perspectives are valued and every colleagues feel comfortable come to work every day to do their best. And we are using our purchasing power to increase the number of diverse suppliers within our network and holding our supplier accountable for ensuring they have stepped up their internal diversity efforts. We believe economies that include everyone, everywhere, uplift everyone, everywhere. I'll pass it back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Annie. I like it everywhere. So Diane, I understand you are also from the cross-border industry, e-commerce industry, selling everywhere. So could you please share how the pandemic impacts the e-commerce industry?
Thank you, Sam. Indeed, I think this pandemic has been very challenging for many people. A McKinsey report says that COVID-19 has disrupted the workplace in ways we have never seen before. The pressure of a pandemic are driving some employees, especially women, to consider downshifting their careers or leaving the workplace. But in our industry, the crisis has accelerated the expansion and the digital transformation of traditional offline businesses. Take China's e-commerce as an example. In the first quarter this year, according to China Customs data, cross-border e-commerce export jumped around 70% due to the surging demand through this convenient channel. In our platform, sellers and partners have sustained their growth by deploying digital tools proactively. They leverage social marketing, such as live streaming, to generate traffic, and they deployed AI and big data to adjust product portfolio based on instant consumer needs. So in results, some sellers' sales surged by 3 times last year. Maybe I can give you another example. Maria, a Texas-based Zumba instructor, quarantined and lost her income due to the virus. But she's been able to survive through our decentralized e-commerce SaaS platform, MyShop. She has introduced Zumba leggings and tops from the SaaS platform to her fans in Facebook community. Once her fans place orders from her channel, we would drop ship to her customers, and she can earn money from selling products through her private online community. So she doesn't need to understand the trade policies, operations, and logistics, but focusing on Zumba skills and managing the network. So I think this is a simple business model that can enable everyone access international trade equally and boosted international trade to the next level. But the companies and individuals without digital tools have been suffering harder. So they are at the crossroads. The choices we're going to make today will have consequences on gender equality, digital equality, and inclusive growth for decades to come. Sam.
Thank you. And let's go back to Zhixing. As a seasoned executive in venture capital and private equity, and your company have to promote large startup innovation, cross-border acceleration, urban innovation, and others. Do you see more opportunities for women in the entrepreneurship? Especially, Diane just mentioned, actually many companies, they would like to have the digital transformation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sim. Good morning, everyone. I'm very honored to be here to share my views with all of you. Yes, I do. Plug and Play as a venture capital and accelerator based in Silicon Valley for past 20 years. We are focused on scouting and helping the early stage startups, especially the high technology startups. So at our daily work, every day we meet a startup. And also we have a program named Fund Her. That means find her and found her. That's especially focused on to scouting and help the startups funded by the female founders and help them to connect with the VCs and the corporate partners and the mentors that help them the growth. Yes, I think very interesting. I have been in this industry for many years, and we are finding the women are developing day by day and from the job seeker to the job creators. So they are growing in many fields, not only in traditional industries like we all know, the clothing, the e-commerce store, online, and the designers, cosmetics, but also, especially these years, we will find in some high-tech area like the AI, the blockchain, the IoT. We find many female founders that start their business to give a huge contribution to the economic growth. So I can give you 2 examples. We have portfolio companies that the founders recently just come back from Silicon Valley, and he found startups with very cool technologies, and also with everyday follow passions, and it's very exciting. So this company make the physical reality digitalized in business in buildings by their independent solutions. So self-developed systematic solutions combined with the content and hardware and software, integrate the AI and mix the reality. So you can use this technology and don't need to wear the glasses like the AR, VR devices. You can come to a house and you can feel you are in the reality world. So many real estate companies use this technology to instead make a lot of rooms demos, so they can don't spend a lot of money on do this. So that's very cool technology. And also recently, I meet a lot of friends. They are also the female founders. Like and there is a startup named HiMate. So that's kind of man-made kind of meat. Yeah, it's a 人造肉的项目. Yeah, it's very, very cool. And we help them to connect with the Air Asia to supply the food and the artisans. And also I have many friends from the GGV and from some other venture capitals. As the investor, they are also creating more opportunities in startups and the innovation ecosystems. The business magazine Forbes released its list of women in tech 2021 last May, which features 50 women. They are not only having a very strong entrepreneur spirit and a profound background in science and technology, but also good at using their unique features to bring different and innovation perspective to science and technology. So I think both these cases shows women are taking more and more important roles in the entrepreneurship and technology field. But however, I think compared with fields, females still have not enough opportunities in entrepreneurship field. I think we still have a long way to go. but it's happy. In recent years, I see much more female founders in the high technology. Thank you.
That's great. So thank you. Back to Diane. As an APEC member and co-convener of Inclusive Working Group, could you share your plan this year to address women issues?
Okay, Sam. In APEC policy brief, we highly emphasize on promoting equal access to digital skills and communication technologies for women and girls. In line with this, our APEC Inclusion Working Group aims to drive more inclusive policies, creating opportunities for women's skills development, and give them greater participation in the economy. This will allow for better inclusive economic growth in APEC. Also, we hosted a series of online forums and women entrepreneurship competition worldwide to empower women with digital advice. For example, we organized a virtual summit with top leaders and best practices and case studies from the public and private sectors in Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, and the Americas, benefiting over 100,000 viewers online. Right now, right here, we're at the APEC Women Connect conference, discussing and reviewing our previous achievements and plans. Moving forward, a series of programs have been planned in our roadmap, including the APEC Women Entrepreneur Survey in July and the APEC Women Connect Entrepreneurship Competition in August. I believe all of these deliverables would be able to provide skills, knowledge, best practices, and even solutions for women to survive and thrive. So here, I'm sincerely inviting all of you to join us in our upcoming APEC Women Entrepreneurship Competition, demonstrating your stories and nurturing other women at crossroads. I think every single action from you, suggestions, story sharing, and encouragement will mean a lot for others.
Thank you. And Annie, what do you think about the importance of capacity building in the women's community? And could you please give us some examples of what Visa has done in this area?
Yeah. So globally, SME represent 90% of business population. And in China, small business contribute 80% employment, 70% intellectual poverty, 60% GDP, and 50% tax. So they are a key contributor to the economy. But during pandemic, small business has been heavily impacted. As a purpose-driven company, we have been supporting small business to recover from pandemic, helping and offering them the tools for digital transformation, connecting sellers and buyers through our network. And capacity building is the foundation to uplift women's skills, increasing the exposure, inspire new ideas, so they can learn from each other through sharing and networking. Visa has many programs, but let me share a few. So globally, we have initiative called She's Next, empowered by Visa, to support women business owners. So women experience difficulties in, say, like getting funding, participating in business network, gaining access to digital tools. So there is plenty of rooms for us to make a difference. And globally, we also launched Practical Business Skills, which is an online platform offering free education resources to assist small business owners with making confident, informed decisions to expand their business operations. So it helps with supporting the digital transformation of businesses. And coming back to China, we launched a Beijing 2022 and Women's Program in partnerships with China Women's Development Foundation and Beijing Sport University, with the aim to support the sustainable economic development growth in the host city of Olympics. This is a perfect example of public-private partnership, and our goal is to provide capacity building and training for 5,000 women business owners in culture, tourism, and sports sectors, so they can better capture the Olympic opportunities for more business, further expansion, and even market overseas. Visa has been the Olympic sponsors for over 30 years, And our goal is to enhance the skill set of the women entrepreneurs and bring them resources. So far, we have already trained some 1,300 participants and has extended the geographic coverage in Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei to support the regional sustainable economic development under the national strategy. So a few data points for our baseline research, which shows the critical importance of digital adoption and transformation. And Visa has been contributing and supporting. So 70% of the respondents only sell in person. So they need to shift the business to online. And there is a lack of digital tools and platform because only 10% doing online marketing. And also 70% of respondents agree Olympics bringing business opportunity, but they don't know where and how to start. Women business owners sees their success in business has high association with their family. So there is an implication about work, life, family, and business. So technology and digital transformation can help drive productivity and efficiency. So business owners need to be equipped with a new set of skills and tools. And companies which are digital savvy, technology savvy, will have a higher chance to transform and survive. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. We're running out of time again. The last question for all, which is the recommendations for women in business. So let's back to Zhixing. You mentioned you met many successful women founders recently. So what common personalities do they share that other women can learn from?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So even the female founders will meet lots of difficulties and the funding and also the mentors networking and the self-confidence, but they have many good qualities. I think both in startup and also in PPP, so they are perceiving their business as a cooperative network of relationships comprising of family, society, and personal relationships. So those successful young female talents, I think, have the passion and vision for what they believe and what they love. So they are very strong-minded, empowered, and healthy self-image, and take responsibility for their life. And they use their soft skills, emotion, intelligence, to enhance the advantages in the business world. They are also very hardworking, good organizers, and the decision makers. I think another important features I need to say is that they can balance their life. Even many female founders, when they have a meeting with the investors also always ask the question, how to balance your life and your work. Yeah, so I have a friend that say, I'm not your wife. Why you always ask me this question? Yeah. So I think the very good, they can balance their life, judging the work and family, and never be easy. Yeah. So those successful young female talents are having the support both inside and outside the home to help them to balance the job demands and the family needs. I think no matter the female or male, successful entrepreneurs are optimistic, keep growing their business. So female talents are better to unite the team with their soft skill and to maintain the core staff stable. During the academic time, our portfolio companies lead by female talents are stable with the team. And the people are together to overcome the difficulties are much more easier than the male lead company. I think that's very important. I think it's also the advantage for the female founders. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very great. And Annie, what's your company's plan this year and onwards in the post-pandemic era to have women?
Yeah, Visa will continue to do two things. The first one, investing in our workforce, nurture a diverse, inclusive culture internally, and offer training benefit that support our employees' success. So we expanded our Visa University, which is our signature global learning platform. We launched a world-class online and in-person training for our colleagues. And externally, we provide capacity building, workshop training to uplift people knowledge and capability, including government officials, small micro business owners, and entrepreneurs. And the second thing is empowering people and economies. I gave some examples that how we support SMB, micro small businesses, and how to expand the financial assets, and in order to bring them more resources and collectively to strengthen the capability and also that benefit the community. Because we know that when we empower women, the individuals benefit, the family benefit, and the community benefit. And again, we believe economies that include everyone everywhere uplift everyone everywhere.
Okay, great, thank you. And Diane, can you please share what industry or tools can women benefit from?
Okay, Sam, I try to make it short. From my point of view, I believe the digital tool is the perfect solution in addressing gender inequality, and it creates an equal environment for all. Since 2020, we've witnessed the power of e-commerce, online education, and e-government, which have helped us live through the most challenging time. Mm-hmm. I think in all of this thriving industry, women can be involved in any of them and benefit. Further, I think the entry barrier of digitalization has been dramatically lowered, given the mature technology, tools, and services available in the market. Everyone can simply use them, even sitting in the living room. But I think we need to aware accessing the skills is a crucial problem for many women. I still remember a voice from a woman farmer in Haiti. She said, "I've often heard the word digital platform, but never really knew what it meant or what it looked like." For example, they always ask how to sell online and how to use live streaming, how to generate online traffic, and how to access microfinancing, etc. There's a common questions for all. They're more fragile and experiencing problems accessing skills, technology, and finance. I think we must change this. It requires a strong collaboration between the public and the private sectors. For example, we can consolidate our knowledge, best practices, and where possible resources. We heard several speakers mention about in digital transformation with those women without digital skills and prepare for the new norm. Actually, I have seen some positive results from the UN's technology pool, and we can also launch the free SaaS for anyone interested in e-commerce to nurture women who wanted to make a change. I wish all sisters online can make progress a day, get a tool, and learn from that. Then we will see a different us, that we can fight against any challenge on our roads. Sam, thank you.
Thank you, Annie, Diane, and Jixing for joining us. Next, we are having the second Hear Her Story. Let's welcome Anna Davidson from England. She is the author of She Make It Happen and speaker and founder of Amazon One-on-One Academy and Your Freedom podcast. Thank you, Anna. I know it's quite early there, so the floor is yours.
It's very early here, but I'm very honoured to be here. So thank you ever so much for inviting me. It's great to be here. So I'm a digital and e-commerce expert, and as you said, I'm an author and a speaker. And listening to the last panelist, it was really inspiring because everything I was nodding my head, and agreeing with all of that. Because in 2013, I set up an online business for the exact reasons that we were just discussing, to get the balance. I'm a mum, I wanted to spend time with my family, and I felt that the digital online world was a way that I was able to do that from home. My background, and actually I worked in the corporate world for many years, but I did feel that I didn't really have that gender equality as regards to going up the corporate ladder and going into those leadership roles. And I think sometimes there's conscious bias and then there's subconscious bias, and that was how I felt. And I think we talk a lot, don't we, about gender equality as regards to, finances and equal pay. But I also think that women have this emotional burden as well, because, a lot of us are mothers and we manage the home and we make sure that everybody else is okay. There's actually a lot of research into this, that emotional burden can actually come out in a lot of stress and chronic illness. And I think we kind of touched on that as well. And I've been trying to inspire people along the way. Last year, I shared my very personal story of being a proud domestic violence survivor. And I share this not for sympathy, but just to inspire people, because I feel that if I've been able to, turn my life around and build a successful online business by learning these digital skills, and just like Diane said, being in the world during the pandemic, e-commerce, there's such a huge opportunity, and a lot of offline businesses have really struggled. So I really do feel like women, we need to skill up, because we can get the balance. If I've been able to do that with my story, then I believe that anybody can do the same. And last year, it was a complete honour to win the champion spot of the APEC Women Connect competition, as well as also being featured in Forbes magazine as well. So I also have my podcast, which I think by sharing our stories, we've all had challenges, whether that's business challenge or maybe a personal story such as mine, but by sharing our stories, we can really empower each other and support each other as women. And I offer a lot of free training as well as paid mentorship now. My business, I have my business that originally came from interest, creating these physical product brands, and DHgate is close to my heart because that was the first marketplace that I first went on to. And I've kind of grown from there with all these different interests with beauty products, home and kitchen, my bamboo range now, tech gadgets as well. And it's great to be able to help other women go and find an interest, discover, learn all these digital skills and be able to kind of create these brands and sell those into the marketplace, and look after their family at the same time. So it's an honour to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for your sharing. I owe you a coffee. So next panel, women entrepreneurs strive and thrive in the crisis. We have Chanta Sinha from India, a member of BRICS Women Business Alliance India chapter, founder and chair of a Man-Bank and Man-Foundation, which is India's first bank to help women in rural areas. And Mandy Ying from China, associate of corporate engagement at Goldman Sachs. And Ruby Xing, founder of Hello Future Academy and author of 7 education-related books from China. Let's start with our first question to Cheta. We know you are a famous social activist working to empower women in rural areas by teaching entrepreneurship skills, access to land and means of production. And as you said, in this pandemic, the lack of a phone left many quarantined women completely cut off from their family. So could you please introduce the latest condition of women in rural area in India? And in your opinion, how can we help them?
Sure. Thanks it's an honor to be a part of this panel, and thanks for inviting me. So it's very, that if you talk about India and Indian women, generally people would say, right, particularly in rural India, it's huge, it's fragmented. The agriculture sector is actually finding a lot of challenges on one side. But on the other side, when you see women that in that challenging situation also how they are finding the ways and the solutions. And I many times feel that policymakers should listen to these women, policymakers, or even myself. When I run a women's bank, Mandeshi Bank, you would be surprised to know that, these poor women who are doing streets, they are doing business on the street. They said that we want an opportunity of savings. They never talked about credit. Why? Because they wanted to save their hard-earned money and manage the finance, which clearly indicates that women see their role not as a housewife, not just as taking care of the children and household, but they also want to go beyond that. And so they are looking for those opportunities. And so Mandeshi started a bank for that. Now, coming to the answer of your question, that what is the condition today in post-pandemic? How are women, are really women are able to display the resilience? And I would just like to share some of the stories actually from the grassroots. Let me share the story of Manisha. She actually was in Mumbai, and she was staying with her husband in Mumbai, working in Mumbai as a security guard. And then because of pandemic, she had to come back. She migrated back to her village and started a business of buffaloes and goats and started doing a milk vending. Now, Manisha actually wanted to complete her high school and wanted to become a pharmacist, but she couldn't do that because family did not have enough resources. So when she came back from Mumbai, she started a milk business. But she had to send the bills also to her client. What Manisha did is that she didn't have a smartphone. And so Mandeshi Bank provided a credit product where women can buy smartphone and can do as in the previous session it was mentioned, how that, technology is the enabling tool for women. So she bought the smartphone, she downloaded the accounting app and sent the bill to her client to whom she's selling milk digitally, which actually brought her, being in a very small village, a digital source of money. When you have, because a lot of us, we talk about digitalization and women and smartphone, but the most important part, and we talk about digital financial literacy, but the most important part is that how is she going to get the digital source of money? She may know to do the digital transaction, but if that ecosystem is not there, where she can get the digital source of money, then she won't be able to do the transaction. So the first thing which Mandeshi Bank did was that to get women a smartphone and create a credit product for that. The second thing, designing the digital financial literacy in such a way that they not only learn to do the financial transaction, but they also learn to do accounting and sending the bills so that they can get their digital money. And the third is that, how do they get access to the e-commerce and digital marketing, right? And with this, Manisha was able to get the digital source of money. She could create a digital history of her business, and which made her eligible for the borrowings, loans, right? And in India particularly, we have seen that women don't own land. And I do think that not only in India, but Africa, Asia, there is this whole issue of how many, if we see the data of either World Bank or UN, how many women are owning the land, how many women have the ownership of household. And I very strongly say that women like Manisha, who are breaking century-old patriarchal system on one side, but at the same time, by creating these digital sources and all, they become an eligible borrower. And not only that, but they also can download the app where they can see that, app of ownership of property, ownership of land. They can see how their husbands are owning the land. And when they go for the borrowing to the banks, they can say that, okay, I am co-lending my land with my husband, and this is my collateral. What I'm trying to say is that entitlements is so important for women. Ownership is so important for women. And I'm proud to share with you all, but running bank and business school for rural women, there are so many women like Manisha Jimal we have reached more than 700,000 women. By 22, we are looking to impact 1 million women entrepreneurs in rural India and trying to create the ecosystem where not only women will have a digital smartphone, but they will be able to own the property. They will get the loans for working capital. They are already getting it and become a successful entrepreneur. What will this result in? As it was mentioned that when women, actually the income of women increases, the income of household increases. But the most important part I feel is that if women's income increases, the local economy also drives. And when the local economy drives, the country GDP grows. And with this, I would say that, what our women say is that never provide poor solutions to poor people. They are smart. And with this, I would say that our women are actually, even they have never been to high school, but today they are part of e-commerce, they are doing digital banking, they are creating their digital source. And Mandeshi has created an alternative credit course system for women. And I do feel that, either it is Asia Pacific, either it is Africa, or being a part of the BRICS Bank, we are also now working out that, if we want to work on women entrepreneurship, we have to create an alternative credit score, alternative titlements, and ownership of land for women. And then only they will be able to drive in the formal economy. So with this, I would say that this whole penetration of smartphone have created so much of opportunities for women. And today, in the beginning of the pandemic, only 10% of women had access to smartphone in my area, and now it has increased to 40%. So what I want to say is that women are ready to invest in smartphone. Women are ready to go for these digital platform. And once they get that entry, nobody can stop that. And I do believe that globally also, this whole index of women-owned business is much, much below, which we can actually be very proud and take it upscale. But at the same time, I know India is also lagging behind. But I'm sure that if these women get an opportunity, then we can actually improve our index. And another thing which I would like, later on we can speak, that how do we measure all these things? How do we replicate? And these actually pilots which we are doing should become a macro system for the whole economy. So thanks, and I'll be glad to reply if you have any other question. But I would just like to say and briefly make a statement that time has come that globally, even either it is at a BRICS Bank or it is at a G20 or it is at a G7, all where we have to talk about women entrepreneurship, we have to talk about capital for women, and we have to talk about digital knowledge for women. With this, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. The story of Malaysia is quite inspiring. So let's get back to Ruby. As an entrepreneur, have you met any difficulties or opportunities during this time, just like Malaysia, the similar situation with them?
Yeah, as a woman entrepreneur, it's very typical situation that you met similar difficulties. For example, in the pandemic, I have an offline big school. All the school closed almost 1 year. So how can we survive almost 60 staff and their families financially over the pandemic? So this is my first question when I heard the pandemic, because at the very beginning, I know it's coming, but we don't know it coming that long. So at the beginning, I really want to, lead the women group, because most of my staff are women entrepreneurs with me, because they join my team because of I'm a woman. I want to support my child with better education. So that's why I founded a very good daycare and the preschool in China, in Beijing. So since all of my staff are women, most of them, so as a group, we think how we can survive the pandemic. We began to think all the possibilities, but we realized that we have to go online. But as an offline school, it's so impossible to go online. Most of people have the stereotype, especially for the 0 to 6 years old. Our target, clients are our target group. But during the pandemic, I'm very sure that I need to be the role model instead of sitting back. So I decided to have some broadcasting and the short videos on the internet, and to try to provide online courses for the parents instead of the 0 to 6 years old child. And at the beginning, as a group, we don't use to the online things. We almost interact with the children, and we all know it is our advantage. But when the crisis is coming, your advantage becomes your disadvantage, and you don't know where to find your advantage. At that time, my approach is to learning by doing. So as a woman, I think our advantages will be the adjustment abilities. For example, if I'm a girl, I'm single, I can get used to this kind of work environment. If I'm a mom, I'm with my baby, and I also want to get my career, I need to adjust really quick. I think that's an advantage of the women. So we learning by doing that until now. After 1 year after pandemic, we right now have over 200, anchors or the online teachers. But previously, we only have 60 offline teachers. If you ask me before the pandemic, I will never imagine that, because you always know the crisis is like a box to lock you in, but the crisis actually is a box for you to step on. And during this pandemic, I think I'm stronger psychologically, even though financially we have some bleeding, we have some problem, but for your head level, for your psychology level, you really get onto the box. The box is called the crisis. So it's very typical for the women to get similar crisis. Not only the bigger crisis like a pandemic, but smaller crisis like you're pregnant without expectations, or you suddenly have a family members, have some disease you need to handle with. So the crisis is not only big one you need to tackle, also the smaller one. So I think this is our nature, the women's nature, to overcome the no matter bigger crisis or smaller crisis. But what you need is to treat the crisis like a box you step on. Now the box you put yourself, locked in. This is what I'm, the difficulties I'm at, and what my attitude towards this crisis.
Thank you, Ruby. And Mandy, you just heard of China's sharing about financial demands, mobile banking, something like that. So in Goldman Sachs, I know you as the program lead for Goldman Sachs, 10,000 women in China. So what are the most challenging difficulties women-led business facing with, and how does your program help them?
Thank you, Sam. And it's an utmost honor to join this amazing panel with amazing women entrepreneurs such as Chetna and Ruby, who's also a Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women graduate, to discuss what women need in this unprecedented time. And perhaps before I address your question, Sam, it might be helpful to take a step back and provide a 1 minute introduction of what Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women program is. So we launched this program 13 years ago to support female entrepreneurs globally and in China, in India, in Kenya, Brazil, South Africa, and so on. And today we've supported over 100,000 women globally. And in China, since 2008, so shortly after the financial crisis, 10,000 Women program from Goldman Sachs has trained over 19,000 female entrepreneurs, such as Ruby, in China through business and management education program that will partner with some of the most world-class academic institutions such as Tsinghua University, and also providing access to finance, coaching, and mentorship across China, and particularly in Beijing, Hangzhou, Chengdu, and Kunming. And I work very closely with all these female entrepreneurs in China all over the country, and really seeing COVID-19 disrupted the world and really ushering the sharpest global recession in recent history, and obviously kind of really magnifying many of the challenges personally and also professionally that are rarely posing on female entrepreneurs in a normal day, but especially so in COVID-19. And as a matter of fact, we recently conducted another global survey amongst our 10,000 women graduates all over the world, as we wanted to see a year out from the start of COVID, how they're doing, and also to make sure we keep the focus on what women need at this critical time. And we've heard from over 1,000 female entrepreneurs all over the world, including a little bit closer to 300 in China. And we found that your question, Sam, nearly all of our program graduates has experienced some sort of difficulty running their business. And obviously the foremost challenge was financial, but also a close second one was related to the unique role of women as caregiver and responsibility for running family and business altogether, just as Ruby has mentioned just now. But we're also very delighted to see that our alumni adapted very quickly and pivoting their business models and adopting digital tools to success in this new environment, just as Diane mentioned in the former panel. And we've also seen more than 3/4 of our graduates remain very optimistic about their future business prospects. And we understand that with the right support, we think they can realize the immense opportunities ahead. And zooming into China, particularly, we were able to see that our female entrepreneurs really thrive from the first in, first out, in fact, because China has really taken control of COVID at a very early stage. And we're able to see our graduates, even though they've experienced challenge of the drop in revenues and employments, for example, they were able to get out of those challenges much more quickly than the rest of the world, and also remaining a much higher confidence level because of that. And that is, I think, many thanks to the adoption of the digital tools, as Ruby mentioned, many kind of really agilely turn their offline business into online and really leverage the online marketing and online sales to ensure the competitiveness of their business. And some of the things that we're also very happy to see beyond running the business and really taking care of the family was that even though our graduates didn't say that purpose beyond profits was as critical as surviving their business, we're actually able to see a much higher percentage of our Chinese female entrepreneurs giving back to their community, paying it forward to the bigger society, even though they are experiencing their own challenges, and it is a very challenging time. And in terms of the support, the Goldman Sachs and the 10,000 Women program has supported our graduates from the very beginning. I recall really at the very beginning of the COVID outbreak last year, I call every single graduate based in Wuhan and in Hubei province, and they really cried and share how desperate they are. They're not able to run their business. They were really locked down at home with some of their kids, and they really appreciate the care and the rapid support that Goldman Sachs were able to lend to them. But then subsequently, we did a couple of more tangible things, including conducting a pulse survey just for our Chinese graduates to understand what they need. And then subsequently, we've hosted town halls, really gathering the senior stakeholders from Goldman Sachs and share our unique perspective from Goldman Sachs to our graduates in terms of what are some of the industries that are still thriving under COVID that would kind of have a benefit in access to finance. So kind of some of the industries and sectors for the female entrepreneurs to look into, but also working very closely, as I said, with Tsinghua University into launching an inaugural series of virtual webinars ranging from how to set up your online business and digital transformation, all the way to really training up a new generation of talents that will be agile with these new kind of working from home contexts, and to the way to kind of really kind of incorporating sustainability and environmental ESG element into their business, even though they are just small and medium businesses, they're also very critical to incorporate the ESG elements. So by really supporting from the education, the coaching and mentorship perspective, we're happy to see really the female entrepreneurs pivoting to much more positive trends this year.
Thank you. Let's turn to India again. Chetna, we know you are working actively in women's empowerment. So could you share any best practices of ambitioning and leading initiatives to promote women's entrepreneurship? Are there any new ideas invented by women-led business?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks. And it was very interesting to listen Ruby and Mandy about, this whole, how women are themselves creating the ecosystem for women entrepreneurs. I always feel that, and also let me talk about, as you mentioned, that women business leaders, right? It is, while working with Mandeshi Bank, what did we learn from our women? We were providing micro loans, we were providing micro savings to our women. But our women wanted to scale their business, right? And when you want to scale the business, so microcredit, everybody knows that microcredit is there, and there is all the ecosystem is there for microcredit, where you can have a credit rating score. There are microcredit institutions all over the world now, particularly in Asia and Africa, where they provide the micro loans without collateral. There's no with the peer pressure. But the whole challenge is that how do we graduate from microcredit to micro enterprise, where it's an individual entrepreneurship, right? Here, the peer pressure or group is not there. And it's not, I always believe that individual enterprise is equally important. Now, how do these women, how can the challenge one is that how would they get an access to capital? And in that sense, there are two ways of getting access to capital, right? One is debt and another is equity. Now, when you are in a very nascent stage of business, it is very difficult to set up the company, get the equity investors and all that. What I have learned from our women is that they do have an individual enterprise. They do want a working capital loan. And the major challenge is that they don't get working capital loan. Why? Because the ecosystem which are required, because what are the pains of the lender also has to be understood, right? That what is stopping lender to give loans to women who own micro enterprise? Number one, they need collateral. Number two, they need digital history. Number three, they need to see that, how much access these women have at the market, in the market, selling their product. Number four, how are they efficient with their cost of production? Now, how can you give those details to the lender? In case of a regular entrepreneur, I'm talking about men entrepreneur, all this ecosystem is available. And they have their balance sheets, they have their all these things. And I'm sure when Mandy was talking about the Goldman Sachs 10,000 women entrepreneurs, I see even in India, this mentoring is done, right? Where you mentor them and see that our women who want to become and scale their businesses, but their micro enterprises, they should have their accounts in place. They should have their digital history in place. And for that mentoring and hand-holding is required. And the one way is to do it at the individual level, which is great, but you cannot scale that, right? So here the most important part is that in every country, they have these ministries of micro enterprise, ministries of small and medium enterprise. And I strongly feel that these ministries have to create the open system where that data can be entered of these women. See, I believe very strongly. On one side, you help these women to scale their business, provide them loan for micro enterprise. But on other side, you have to create the data and make this micro enterprise visible globally. How do you do that? Which are the public platform where these data can be entered? And what we at Mandeshi Bank are doing, we have created this whole system of creating this alternative credit score system, and where women can, in the data, prove and showcase their entrepreneurship journey, which will make sure that they have become a mature entrepreneur, and now they can handle a bigger loan. Because unless they get the access to capital, they cannot scale. Unless they get the access to mainstream market, they cannot scale their produce because they are not sure about the market. So I do believe that data plays a very significant role, not just to showcase only for the countries like statistics, but also for the lender to feel confident to provide loans to these women. And I also feel that globally it becomes very important that how BRIC Bank can create these data platform for women entrepreneurs in the country like, Brazil, Russia, India, China, because we are going to learn from each other, right? Which are the digital platform which will give this data? And again, I would just like to say that in many countries, even like in country like China, a lot of things have been resolved digitally where in India, we can learn. And from India, where women have been like a great business leaders, have represented themselves on the boards, and how they have become, because I also would like to add that it's not just setting up my enterprise and scaling it, but taking the role of leadership in the sector and say that, with me, as Goldman Sachs talks about the 10,000 women entrepreneurs, and, when Ruby was mentioning, it's now the time has come that we actually encourage the women business leaders, have millions of women business leaders representing globally, and we can show that, countries should feel ashamed of space on boards, do not have a owner. I do think that now so that there is a competition of celebration, right? If my country actually shows that, we have millions of in India, we have 30% of women should be in the jobs. And in similar way, I think that we should talk about the entrepreneurship also, that how many women are sitting on the boards. Because they are not only, it's not just quota. Boards which had more number of women on their, as a member of the board, those companies have performed much better. which clearly indicates that the leadership of women is, but it is also required across boards and across country. So in this sense, I would say, and I would just like to end with very interesting story of one of our women radio. We were not getting the license, and everything like, how will women run the radio? And this radio jockey Kera Bai, she cannot read and write, but she said, I can previous generation, and she today is running. She has become a famous radio jockey, and she said that we can run the bank, we can run our businesses. Why can't they bring new ideas? And if they are given an opportunity of the leadership, they can drive the economy, they can scale the country's GDP, and I also find that they can set some very ideal parameters which globally one should take up.
Thank you so much. Mandy, we know Goldman Sachs Women Project have a global presence, including in India. Would you tell us more on the women entrepreneurship programs goes on in a global basis? And based on your research and report, are there any similarities and differences among regions and countries, for example, between China and India, something like that? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Sam. And I'm also happy to share that actually India, China is the largest market of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women program, but India is the second and very close to become the first one, because India is currently having very active in classroom training at the moment with Indian School of Business, and really trying to support the female entrepreneurs in India. So we're definitely very active in markets like India. And I mentioned slightly about kind of our recent research and how our Chinese female graduates were thriving in some of the data. So happy to share a little bit more color if that's of interest. So for example, in the first in, first out effect, COVID-19, we're able to see, for example, 43% of our Chinese entrepreneurs are reporting a decline in revenues and 40% decreasing the number of people they employ. And globally, we're seeing 60% of decline in revenues and 50% of decline in employment. So this is just to say the Chinese entrepreneurs has reported a kind of a much faster kind of getting out of the pandemic in terms of economic impact, but also reported a higher confidence level than their global peers. So for example, we are seeing an 86%, really high percentage reporting from the Chinese entrepreneurs that they feel they're confident about their future business prospects, whereas the global level were 78%. And in terms of the digital adoption, which is a very important element of our finding, in response to COVID-19, we've seen really 75% of our Chinese alumni pivoted or changed their business models, which is 5% more than what we're seeing globally. And the strongest example was in the digital realm, where the adoption of digital tools increased by a global leading 15%. And if I could perhaps share examples of what we're seeing in the rest of the markets, for example, on the digital front. So in China, we're seeing kind of 91% of the entire digital adoption. And in the UK, it's 59%. And in Africa, it's 69%. And the US, it's 50%. In India, 78%, so a little bit higher. So just to give a taste of the landscape that we're seeing from our female entrepreneurs of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women program. And also very interestingly, on the purpose beyond profit, I think that is the most interesting one. So the way we survey our female entrepreneurs, we first ask about how importantly do you think it is to give back to your community before COVID and also during COVID. So the response of our Chinese communities is that only 58% reporting that it's important, versus globally, there's 78% saying it's very important to give back globally. However, when we ask what did you actually do to your community, we've seen 89% of our Chinese female entrepreneurs already giving back to their community by donation or supporting, mentoring more women in the community before COVID-19. And also 79% say they will continue to do so since the embark of COVID-19. So this is very interesting element, really proving that the Chinese female entrepreneurs here really, they are walking the walk, even though they're not talking the talk. And also very interestingly, we've also seen the Chinese entrepreneurs were more concerned with the state of the environment than their global peers, though they're less concerned with the impact of their business on the environment and the impact of the environment on business. And in our view, we think this discrepancy was really reflecting an increasing appetite for the ESG consideration, even though they have not been in the historical forms.
Great, thank you. And Ruby, Mandy just talked about women's confidence in business. So in this tough time, Ruby, what are some of the characteristics of women leaders you believe to be valuable in the business community?
I think the most important characteristic will be the learning from mistake abilities, because as a woman, we have so many identity. In the family, we are mother, wife. In the school, we are the founder. In the company, we are the CEO and the founder. So, the most, stereotype that the mom and the woman has to be perfect. You need to balance work and life, and you need to be strong as the man. This is all those perfection in your head. So I think for me, to raise up women's confidence is just to learn from the mistakes. Don't take the mistake as a result. Take the mistake as the process. For example, I made a mistake in a decision making of the company. For example, I met pandemic. I opened new school. I have some offline branch. It's a mistake, but we have to learn from it. If we take it as a result, we can now stand up and move on. So this is my own strategy to raise my confidence. So my confidence is built up by my mistakes. So I always have a mistake journal. So every time I made a mistake, I write it down, and I will focusing on how I can learn from it. And as a mom, I teach this to my little girl. She is a 3rd grader. As a child in this pandemic, in this competitive society, as a younger woman, as a girl, she also met some pressure, competition. She doesn't know how to handle with it. And she is learning from me and writing the mistakes and helping her from the learning during the pandemic. So I think as a woman, we are so different with men. We don't need to be the same as men, but we have to figure out the special way, to be ourselves. And the special way is that we are much easier to reflect our mistakes than the man, and it's easier for us to adjust from the older mistake to a newer opportunity. So this is, I think, is the most important, valuable characteristic of women. And the second characteristic, I think, is just to be focused. For example, I love education. If education industry in that China met some difficulties and I give up, I move to another industry, the same thing will happen over and over again. So you need to have a passion on what you love, and you need to be focused. For example, on the first day of my entrepreneur day, I know it's not easy in the education industry, but I need to be focused like over 30 or 40 years old until I died. So I need to be focused in this industry. As long as you're focused, you can have the ability to achieve the success. So right now, I've been in the education industry for over 10 years. And right now, I can see in the next 20 years or 40 years, I can be successful. So it's all about focus abilities. Okay, thank you. That is all my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I like your special way very much. Thank you, Ruby. So the last question for all, what recommendations can you give to your sisters on seeking their dreams? Chetna, what's your opinion? What recommendations can you give to them?
So I would say, if you close your eyes, and if you are thinking that there is a CEO conference, what would you see after closing the eyes about imagining the CEO? I know if you ask generally somebody, close your eyes, there is a CEO conference, what do you see? And many of would say that we would see men in suit and boot and tie. All these CEOs are sitting, right? That would be the immediate reaction. I would say that now the time has come where not only, as my peer panelists mentioned, that walk the talk. And I would say in the last recommendation that Mandeshi has decided that within 2 years, we will have 500,000 CEOs, women CEOs, and be proud of that. Make ourselves proud, make our women proud, make our country proud, and make our world proud. That, we have to talk that these millions CEO by 25, why can't we have that? And so I would just say that everyone has to think in that way, that we will have millions women CEO and see how the world will be different.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ruby, what's your take?
Yeah, I think, I really suggest that all the women take it as a different gender than the man. We don't need to be man, but we still figure out a way to be strong. Like what I said, you can learn from mistakes and you can focus on a single one industry and you will be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mandy, what's your view?
Thanks, Sam. I'll say 3 things. One is really curate your own network of support, because it takes a village to raise a baby, to foster a family, but also to curate your own business. So really have your network of support and also have your network of mentor and coaches, and to really enable an ecosystem build up for success. And second is to focus on talent development and the new generation, and also continue to build a strong case and enhance your competitiveness in the digital transformation, because that's just the trend of the future. And thirdly, and very importantly, pay it forward. If you receive support from your family, from your business, from your employees, from the community, pay it forward and bring it back and to support and enable more women, which will ultimately build up a better ecosystem, a better society for the future. And these are all the things that Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women really believes in, and working hard to kind of play a part into supporting that ecosystem. So we believe by joining forces, we will bring a brighter future to the female entrepreneurs in China, but also more broadly globally.
Great. Thank you so much, Chetna from India, Ruby and Mandy for joining us today. And okay, we're coming to the last show. Let's welcome Sabina and Froba from Cameroon, co-founder and president of Africa Tech Hub, computer engineer and tech woman fellow. Sabrina, the floor is yours. I know it's quite early for your time. Hi, Sabrina. Maybe you can turn on your audio.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me
perfect.
now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sam. Thank you. This has been a really, really powerful session. I think the last panel conversation was really inspiring, and I'm sure that everybody on this call found it really useful. Thank you very much, Chetna, Mandy, and Ruby for just inspiring the rest of us. So for me, my name is Sabina Foba. I am from Cameroon. Cameroon is in West Africa, and I am a computer engineer. So my background, my journey through school and when I started work was a little bit lonely, gender-wise, because I found myself as maybe one of the few women in class or in the work field. So it wasn't very comfortable, and I thought, what can I do to solve this problem? And I quickly realized that even though there was this huge gender gap in STEM in tech fields, it wasn't just about the leaders. It was a fundamental problem that had to do with education. And so the problem with in Cameroon, and I think that in most countries in Africa, is that we have a very high unemployment rate. According to the International Labour Organization, we have a 75% of underemployment rate and 30% employment rate. And so you see this number of people who go through school, who graduate, and who cannot get jobs. At the same time, there are so many opportunities, especially in the tech field, who want people, but there are no qualified, the labor force is not qualified to take up this position. So you see there's a bottleneck. People leave in school, job opportunities, but nobody to take this position. And I quickly realized that I needed to do something about it and stop complaining like the rest of all of us were very good at being critical and complaining. I thought, no, this has to stop. I have to do something about it. And 3 years ago, I co-founded Architect Hub, which is literally an initiative to encourage young people to be innovative thinkers and to be creative people, especially women. So what we do is that we tackle the problem of underemployment and employment, especially gender disparities, in 2 different levels. So we work with younger people and older people. We look at the fundamental level, the young people. I'm very happy that Ruby spoke about the example that she's living for her daughter, because it's really important that we focus on the younger people. We expose them, talk to them, give them opportunities, and let them know, okay, because according to statistics, in the next couple of years, the number of 80% of the new jobs are being created are going to be digital and tech related. So how can we help these people to pick up these jobs in the future? We can start exposing them to tech careers, tech opportunities, education now when they're younger. And so we created STEM clubs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics clubs in these schools. We carry out broad career orientation and tech career orientation campaigns to make the students first of all realize that everybody can be whoever. It doesn't matter where you come from, the color of your skin, your gender. Just bring out professionals from all over the world, all over Cameroon, to talk to young people and inspire them. Now, at the level of the current workforce, so the people who are unable to get jobs right now because they lack the skills, what we do is that we carry out capacity-based and digital literacy programs to help people develop 21st century skills. And I'm really I'm happy with the work that the women on the panel are doing to increase digital literacy and to just make women understand that we have a lot of capabilities. There's a lot of things to be done in the world, especially towards digital transformation and especially post-COVID. And so what we do is that we work with women in the community, especially women who suffer with women who are physically challenged. And so we give them access, we give them the tools to be able to carry their businesses onto the internet and to inspire other people, or just to help them to have a better quality of life. And in all the work that we've been able to do, we've seen that the people who have gone through our programs have not only developed the skills, but have also helped to be, inspire their own local communities. They're going ahead to be role models. So a young girl can say, okay, I know that Sabina is the computer engineer, she's a woman, and so I can become a woman too. Because I believe that one of the reasons why we have very few women in tech and very few women in leadership positions is because we have very few role models. Okay, so the more role models we have, the more younger people look up to us and say, okay, no, I want to be like this person. It's possible I can be like this person. And we don't, to get to these positions of leadership, we don't necessarily have to be like men. We can just learn to be ourselves, but to be good leaders, to be authentic, to be transparent, to be inspiring people, women. And so this has been a journey for me, and it has been a very, very inspiring one. I hope that everybody on the panel is able to learn something from what I've been able to share. And I look forward to connecting with the rest of us and, moving forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sabina. And that's all for today's online conference, but I think it's just a beginning for us. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing your insights, empower our audience who are at a crossroads to get through the crisis together. And thank you for our audience for coming today to make a change today. I wish you a good day and good health. Goodbye. Thank you.